Secretary speak first.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Before we get started, I just wanted to introduce and acknowledge Pastor Johnny Miller, who's joining us for the first time. I had the pleasure of knowing Pastor Miller for over 26 years and wanted to welcome him to the board, let him know that we're proud of him joining the board, and he's from the West Side, has been on the West Side for a long time, and so that was the same chair that our good friend Pastor Robinson sat in, and I know you will do an equal good job representing the West Side and the people of Chicago, so welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And like Chairman Pearson has assigned Director Sen to chair the Strategic Plan Committee meeting today.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
I would like to call to order the June 8th, 2016 meeting of the Committee on Strategic Planning and Service Delivery. Would the Secretary please call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Peterson,
Here.
Ms. Alvarez-Rosales,
Here.
Director Sen.
Here.
We have a quorum with 3 members of the committee present.
Thank you. And Pastor, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
A first order of business, the second order, the first was welcoming the new member. Second order of business is approval of the committee minutes of May 15th, 2016. The minutes were previously distributed. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
I'll second.
Second? Oh, thanks.
Those are actually May 11th minutes, I believe.
Did I say something else?
I thought you said the 15th, but I could have typed it
Oh,
wrong.
I
Who
see.
knows? This is
No,
May 11th.
May
minutes
11th is good.
Have been moved and seconded.
Would
Ms.
the Secretary please call the roll?
Sure. Ms. Alvarez-Rosales,
Yes.
Mr. Peterson,
Yes.
Chairman Sen.
Yes.
The minutes of May 11th, 2016 are approved with 3 yes votes.
Our next order of business is a review of an ordinance authorizing improvements to the South Side bus route, route number 26, South Shore Express, and number 95E, 93rd, 95th, and number 95W, which is West 95th. Ms. Maury will tell us about it.
Good morning. I'm Carol Morey, Chief Planning Officer, and I have with me Mike Connolly, the Vice President of Service Planning and Scheduling. So on May 12th, Mayor Emanuel, Deputy Mayor Zopp, and President Carter announced a series of improvements to the South and South Side bus service and to the Green Line designed to promote better transit access for residents of the South Side and Far South Side. These service improvements affect 7 bus routes, including the number 4 Cottage Grove, the number 26 South Shore Express, the number 34 South Michigan, the number 71 71st South Shore, the 95E, the 95W, the 119, and the Green Line. The CTA service policies and procedures define service changes as minor, moderate, and major. Moderate service changes are reported to the board on a quarterly basis. Major service changes, which affect more than 25% of the route miles or service hours for a route, require the approval of the Chicago Transit Board. The changes to the number 4, 34, 71, 119, and the Green Line are moderate service changes. These changes will take effect this fall with the fall changes in our bus and rail schedules. However, the changes to the number 26, the 95E, and the 95W are major service changes which require the approval of the Chicago Transit Board. The changes to the number 26 South Shore Express route will extend service in the northbound direction to 2 o'clock p.m. and extend service in the southbound direction to 9:35 p.m. Service in the southbound direction will begin at 1:10. It currently begins at 2:25. This additional service will provide a better connection to downtown for residents of the neighborhoods of the East Side, South Chicago, and South Shore. These changes will take effect with the changes to our summer schedule on June 20th. The changes to the 95E and 95W routes will combine these 2 routes into 1 route. The change will serve customers traveling from east or west of the 95th Street Dan Ryan Station past the station, providing them with a 1-seat ride, rather than requiring them to change buses at 95th Terminal. It will also improve the frequency of buses traveling west of the 95th Dan Ryan Station. These changes will take effect on September 4th with the changes to our fall bus schedule. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Any questions?
Only one, could you talk a little bit about how we expect maybe these changes to help increase ridership?
So by extending this span on the number 26, we'll catch folks who are maybe not traveling in the peak of the peak, but after the peak. So we would expect to increase ridership that way. As well, we note that when we require people to take a two-seat ride, which, we're asking people who are traveling past the 95th Street Dan Ryan station to change buses at the terminal, we find that does reduce bus ridership. So by creating a one-seat ride past the terminal, perhaps to students who are going to Chicago State, for example, we hope to increase bus ridership that way as well.
Okay.
Any other questions? May I have the leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval?
So moved.
I'll second.
Thank you. We don't need a vote on this, do you?
No, we'll vote at the end for all.
Our next order of business is a review of an ordinance authorizing a 3-year extension to the agreement with the Commuter Rail Division of the Regional Transportation Authority, that's METRA, to subsidize bus route number 128 Soldier Field Express. Go ahead, Carol.
The number 28 Soldier Field Express bus route provides service between Union Station, Ogilvy Transportation Center, and Soldier Field for Chicago Bears home football games. Since 1988, CTA and Metra have partnered to provide this service. The current contract expires on August 15th. CTA staff is recommending an extension of this partnership for another 3 years. Under this arrangement, Metra will subsidize the cost for operation of the route, which is not covered by fares. The fare is $5 per round trip. We anticipate the cost of operations to be $115.83 per service hour for the 2016 football season, $119.30 per service hour for the 2017 football season, and $122.88 per service hour for the 2018 football season. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Any questions?
Yeah, Kara, I've got a question. So how do you calculate the price increase annually? Is that 2%, 3%,
We're using a 3% escalation.
3% escalation? Okay.
And have the costs, other than the increase, been pretty consistent throughout the years? I mean,
They have been. It covers fuel maintenance and also the capital cost of the buses.
okay.
Any other questions? With no other questions, may I have a leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval?
So moved.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Since there's no further business to come before this committee, may I have a motion to recommend board approval of the omnibus?
So moved.
Second.
Would the secretary please call the roll?
Yes, Ms. Alvarez-Alice,
Yes.
Mr. Peterson,
Yes.
Chairman Sen.
Yes.
That motion is approved with 3 yes votes.
And finally, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So
All in
moved.
favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're
Aye.
adjourned.
Great, thanks. We'll start FAB in just a second, Alex. Steve, tell me when you're ready.
You should send me an email about what suit you're going to wear. I almost wore one like that.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
I would like to call to order the June 8th, 2016 meeting of the Committee on Finance, Audit and Budget. Will the secretary call the roll, please?
Yes, Mr. Miller. Yes?
Yes.
Yes. Ms. Irvine?
Yes.
Dr. Sen?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson?
Here.
Ms. Alvarez-Alice?
Yes.
Mr. Youngblood?
Yes.
Chairman Silva?
Yes.
That motion is approved with 7 yes. We have a quorum with 7 members here.
Our next order of business is the review of the finance report. Our presenter is Jeremy Fine.
Good morning, Good morning, Chairman and board members. I'm Jeremy Fine, the CFO, and I'll be presenting the update for April. As you can see here on the first page, the April revenues and the variance to budget. On the fare box and pass revenues, we see this down to budget and down from April of 2015. And this is following trends on lower ridership and the impact of lower gas prices. With regard to fare subsidy, we see this down to budget, but up to April of 2015. Again, as we've talked about in prior months, this follows a continued inaction on the budget in Springfield. With regard to non-fare box revenues, we see this up to budget and up to April of 2015. Again, we're picking up more ad and concession revenues, particularly from vehicle and platform ad revenues. We've also seen the benefit of the sale of some surplus property. Overall, total revenues are up slightly to budget and up to April of 2015, again, due to those additional ad and concession revenues, the sale of surplus property, and again, being offset due to the fact that the fare subsidy is not coming in from the state. With regard to average fares, we see those ticking up slightly, and with regard to free rides, we see that slightly down from April of 2015. With regard to revenues on a year-to-date basis, they are following the same form of what we talked about in April. Again, with regard to fare box and pass revenues, we see that down to budget, but up to year-to-date 2015. The up to year-to-date is due to the milder weather, the increased rail, full fare, and 30-day pass sales, and also the benefit of one additional weekday. With regard to fare subsidy, we see that down again due to the inaction in Springfield, and then flat to what we saw in 2015. For non-fare box revenue, we see this up to budget and up from year-to-date 2015, again due to more ad revenue coming from vehicle and platforms, picking up some of those irregular revenues that we've talked about before in the form of TV and movie-related fees, and also the sale of surplus revenues. Total revenues are down slightly to budget, but up to year-to-date 2015, again, due to those positive factors of additional ad revenue and concessions and the sale of surplus property, but again, being offset by the continued inaction in Springfield with regard to the reduced fare subsidy. Average fares are slightly up, and free rides are slightly up compared to April 2015 year-to-date. On the expense side of the house, we continue to see positive momentum that we've seen through the first quarter of the year continue into April. We see labor coming in favorable to budget, and this is due to vacant positions that have not yet been filled. With regard to material, we see this slightly favorable due to the use of fewer bus and rail vehicle parts. On the fuel and power, we see a positive variance due to the fact that we were able to lock in at very attractive rates, which I'll talk more about when we get to the ordinance authorization, and also lower usage and a small increase due to fuel efficiency. With regard to provisions for injuries and damages and security services, we see those coming in as expected. And other expenses, we see favorable due to the timing of those contractual expenses. So overall, we see a positive variance on a monthly basis here, due again to the labor, fuel, and other expense categories. And this similar format carries over on a year-to-date basis as well. Again, on the labor line, we see a favorable variance due to the vacant positions. Material, again, favorable due to the lower use of vehicle parts. Fuel and power, again, benefiting from locking in at low rates and slightly lower usage. And then provisions for injuries and damages and security services coming in as expected. And then finally, other expenses coming in favorable due to the timing of those contractual expenses. So overall, again, positive outcome on a year-to-date basis with regard to our expenses, again, coming in better than expected. So again, a positive news story there. With regard to our energy needs, we see a positive variance on a monthly basis across all fuel, power, and natural gas sectors. We also see a positive variance on a year-to-date basis across all three areas as well. Any questions?
Yeah, in the average fare, we see it, okay, that is higher, okay, than we budgeted. However, okay, the revenue, okay, I mean, is is lower, okay? Can you just talk a little bit, okay, about?
Sure.
What is
So
creating
average
that?
fare is a calculation of revenues over ridership. So if you have, slightly down in the revenue side, if you're slightly down on the ridership side, it can show a positive increase. We also are seeing an increase in the number of folks going direct to rail. And that's a cost differential of a quarter. So if folks that would have previously taken the bus are now just taking rail, again, you're seeing a positive benefit from that higher cost there. And we're also seeing more folks using the 30-day pass, which again has a higher cost.
But the impact to the revenue, okay, we're gonna have it, right? Okay.
Yeah, so again, we're tracking very closely our revenue trends as well as our ridership trends, but the revenue trend, again, for April here, we see it slightly down. We continue to track that very closely to see how we can continue to mitigate any loss on the fare and pass revenue side. We've also done a very good job of bolstering our non-fare box revenues. We'll continue to look for ways to generate additional revenues in that category to, absorb any type of shocks to the system.
Thank you. Any other questions, please?
Thanks. Well, thanks for giving us some good news again. But I keep worrying about the fare box because that's a very large part of the revenue. And keep worrying that, there's some long-term trends that are taking place that we are not picking up because we're picking up lots of little things going up and down. And I recommended to you in private, and I'm doing that in public, that we do some kind of a study to make sure that we can pry apart the different effects so that we know, what things are going to look like way into the future.
Absolutely. And we're undertaking that endeavor, really kind of drilling down, and we'll be circling back on the results of those analyses as they come due.
Thank you.
I'm just curious, on the TV and movie-related fees, where do those come from?
So if Chicago PD, the television show, or any movie, there's a cost associated with they're having their equipment on our stations, on our trains, buses, so we get a small allocation of funds from those related fees.
Okay. I know there's a lot of activity recently, which is good for us.
Yes.
And then on the added ad revenue, and I think I asked this question with regards, to a lot of the ads that we see. So who sets the price on that? Is that the advertising agency, and how does that work?
So the CTA receives a MAG, a minimum guarantee, as well as a share of the profits above that, that floor. We shared a little bit in the profits last year, for example. It's about a 65-35 split. And then with regard to actually allocating, Mike Gwynn just joined as well from the Revenue Department. And we also have the Titan, for example, who does most of the controls most of the advertising on the platforms. They are working with the potential advertisers to get those contracts signed up and in place. So, the potential advertiser works with Titan in the case of most of our advertising platform to get those contracts in place.
And that seems to be on the increase,
Yeah, so
It is on the increase. Michael Gwynn, Director of Revenue. It is on the increase this year. The contract that we have has a MAG increase every single year. They've met the MAG pretty much every year, so we get to that revenue share mark. You can just tell sometimes by being out in the system that there's a lot more interest.
there's a lot of activity. It seems like it, yeah. That's why I'm asking.
In addition, we're looking at more innovative things. We have the urban panels at the entrances to all the stations, which are very popular. We've done some innovative things like the Trojan Horse on the head house at Grand for the Field Museum. A lot of interesting things that are out there that are advertisers are taking notice, and we're looking to CTA as an option.
Good work.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Do you see the labor expenses continuing in a favorable trend? I've noticed the last three times that labor has been trending positively, but I see a lot of events that are happening throughout the city in the summertime. So I'm assuming that the cost for drivers and things of that nature will go up. Do you see that happening in the summertime and continually?
So as you indicate, the positive variance there on the labor line is due to the fact that we've had some open and vacant positions. As we fill those positions, obviously it would have an impact on that. But again, we're being cognizant of some of these other trends that are going on, but looking to continue to expand and service and whatnot. But so we've seen a positive trend on that line so far. And again, it's really kind of dependent upon the number of vacant positions.
In the funds owed by RTA, okay, I keep seeing, okay, that they keep going up, okay. Are we learning to live, okay, with that, or?
So with regard to the reduced fare subsidy in particular?
Yeah, the funds.
So with regard to the reduced fare subsidy, we put into the budget for 2016 the full allocation, even though in 2015 we only received half. The reason why we did that is we wanted to ensure that we continue to assume that we get the full allocation. We obviously had to adjust last year when those dollars didn't come in. But again, in terms of the overall budget, we have a budget of $1.5 billion. Again, we don't want to see any diminishment in the revenues that we receive from the state through the RTA. But again, we were able to adapt to that environment last year. But again, knock on wood, hopefully we don't see the same situation replicate itself.
So we can handle it, okay, without those funds. Is that what you're saying?
Well, if I could interject, we can handle it, but it's not without the pain of revenues that we expected that we have not received. I think one of the things to keep in mind is that from an expense standpoint, this is a category that has continued to grow since it was first implemented by the state a number of years ago. But the subsidy has not grown with it. And when, the subsidy has remained flat through this entire time period. So I have a situation where my cost of providing free rides has continued to climb, and subsidies remain flat, and then for the last 2 years there's been no subsidy at all. So it has an impact. It has an impact as it relates to the cost of that particular category and to the lack of revenue that's coming in. I think Jeremy is correct that we're able to manage that within the total budget that we have, but we certainly don't view it as something that we could do without. And if anything, we would welcome the opportunity to see it increase to reflect the reality of the cost that we're incurring as a result of it.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, can you remind me, what's our mandated minimum fare box recovery ratio?
It's currently 54.5%.
And so for this month, we were at 54.43, but for the year, we're at 52.14. And there was no data in the report for last year, but is 52.14 for the year, is that the lowest it's been in a while?
So typically, it follows a similar format from year to year. The reason is that in the first quarter, ridership is generally at its lowest as it builds through the summer, and then kind of crests in October as everyone is kind of back off of breaks and fully in school. So again, we expect to see that fare box revenue ratio, the recovery ratio, increase as the months kind of progress.
Even without any new service?
That's correct.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Yeah, just a comment. I want to just clarify, too, what I think Director Irvine was saying as well. So the RTA requires what by us as a transit agency in terms of recovery?
54.5%.
So they're at 54 as well.
I'm sorry,
The RTA.
The
Isn't that by
RTA
statute?
requires the CTA, the RTA total for all the service boards needs to be at 50%.
It's at 50%.
And
Yeah, so that's what I was saying. So, yeah, it required that 50% of our almost overall budget, that we capture that back at 50%. And then, of course, we're supposed to get the others in sales tax. So we're at 52%. So that's,
Thank you for clarifying.
that's the clarification. The other thing I wanted to just mention was two things. One, to kind of follow up on what Director Sen talked about, and then what President Carter mentioned. One, I think as you continue to work with President Carter and the team to drill down at why we're having the swing in terms of especially ridership on the bus side, be it Uber, Divvy bikes, low gas prices. The thing that I think we've got to continue to do is control what we can control. We just ended another fiscal year without a state budget. We've gone an entire year without getting the subsidy that we thought we were going to get. But the thing that we know we can't control what happens in Springfield. But the fact that, you're here, and I know it's only 4 months into our fiscal year, it's good to see, again, labor holding steady, fuel, again, being able to do, the hedging that we've been able to do, getting ahead of that, but controlling what we can control to the best of our ability to try to control our own destiny. Because I think, and I know the president's going to go through this as well with you. Again, we're only 4 months in, but I think controlling that which we have control over.
Absolutely.
So that as we get later on into the fiscal year, if there's no resolution in Springfield, we're still, to the best of our ability, trying to control our own destiny.
Absolutely.
Any other questions? Thank you, Jeremy. Our next order of business is the approval of the committee minutes on May 11, 2016. The minutes were previously distributed. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Would the secretary call the roll, please?
Yes, Mr. Miller? Abstain. Ms. Irvine?
Yes.
Mr. Sen?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Youngblood?
Yes.
Ms. Alvarez-Alias?
Yes.
Chairman Silva?
Yes.
That motion to approve the minutes passes with 6 yes votes and 1 abstention.
Our next order of business is the presentation of the independent auditor report for 2015. Jeremy?
Good morning, Jeremy Fine, CFO. I'm being joined from Crow Horwath, John Weber, and from Benford Brown, our WMBE partner, Tim Watson.
Welcome.
Good morning.
Good
Thank you
morning.
very much
Morning.
for having us here today. As Jeremy said, my name is John Weber. I'm a partner with Crow Horwath, partner responsible for completion of the annual audit. With me is Tim Watson with Benford Brown, our partner on the engagement as well. So I want to talk to you today about the scope of our services, which is the completion of the annual financial audit, completion of the single audit, otherwise referred to kind of as the federal funds audit, and then the procedures we perform on the National Transit Database report that the CTA files with the Federal Transit Administration. Related to the actual financial audit, our auditor's opinion was an unmodified, or otherwise known as a clean audit opinion. So that means all of the numbers presented in the financial statements were fairly stated in all material respects in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. That's the best opinion you're going to get from an auditor. We call it unmodified. So it's good. That's what you want to have on the financial statements. As part of the financial audit, we follow government auditing standards, and in doing that, we evaluate and look at internal controls over the financial reporting and preparation of the financial statements. With that, we did not have any material weaknesses in internal control or significant deficiencies in controls that we had to report at all. So a very clean report related to the financial statement audit. I'm going to have Tim Watson talk a little bit about the single audit for you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Again, my name is Tim Watson. I'm a partner at Benford Brown and Associates, and as Jeremy stated, we are the DBE partner with Crow Horwath for the financial and single audit that was performed for fiscal year 2015. Specifically, our team focused on the procedures done for the federal funds audit. And the procedures are specifically related to making sure that CTA is in compliance with the federal requirements as they are associated with the federal funds that are administered by CTA. And just like with the financial statement audit, Crowe Horwath was able to issue an unmodified opinion as it relates to the compliance over the programs that we audited. There was a $311 million, a little over $311 million in federal funds that were administered by CTA, $290 million of which was in what we call the FTA cluster, and those are the programs that came from the Federal Transit Administration. And that was the program, that cluster of programs is what we focused on. And as I said before, there were no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses as it relates to internal controls related to compliance over those programs. And you have your reports here. And on page 23 of the report, you'll see the summary of the audits that were performed.
Thank you, Tim.
Related to the National Transit Database Report, this is operational and statistical data the CTA provides to the FTA, and we're required to perform procedures over that, basically to make sure that the CTA's underlying records are there to support the numbers being reported to the FTA, for which we have done, and we did not have any exceptions related to that as well. So I'm certainly pleased to report to the board that very clean audits, no findings, no material weaknesses, and also that, again, all the staff at the CTA, and especially in the finance department, very professional to work with. They complete all their tasks in order for us to do our job. We start in November and spend a couple of weeks in November doing what we call interim work. And then we come back in early February. And we're here the whole month of February and March and half of April and issue our report at the end of April. So we ask for a lot of information and we look at a lot of information, and everybody here at the CTA is very professional and helpful in providing that so we can get our job done and provide the report to the board. So with that, we'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Any questions?
Well, just compliments to the staff for producing. And thank you for a very good report. I just have one question. When you mentioned the National Transit Database, that's only the passenger mile traveled part, right? There's no other part that you would be involved with?
No, correct.
Because it's the database is huge. So
yes,
that's
correct.
Only one item.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
No, just again, thank you to the staff and everybody who works so hard.
So the staff and both both auditors as well have made this process very smooth. The teams really made it look easy over the last several years to come to this type of conclusion, but it really is a testament to Sharon Wheeler and the rest of the accounting team, as well as Crowe and Benford Brown. So again, they are to be congratulated. So appreciate that.
Congratulations, and let's keep it up.
Sounds good.
Yeah, Jim, any of the team here, because I think we sometimes take it for granted, but one of the
Yes.
things that I know you inherited a pretty good team that's been in place. Could
Absolutely.
they stand up and just put a face with the name?
Sharon Wheeler is here.
Sharon Wheeler, okay, all right.
Maria Bruno.
Yes, thank you, because every year they come here. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I think this is an appropriate time for you also to inform the board of another success story with regards to federal compliance. And you heard as part of the Crowe Horwath audit that one of the things that they audit is our compliance with the federal program. And as they indicated, we receive a significant amount of federal funds. And there are requirements that are attached to those funds that we are required to follow and to implement as part of our receipt of the federal funds themselves. In addition to the annual audits that we have done for the program, we also have FTA come in every 3 years and do what's known as a triennial review, where they come in and they look at a large swath of our operations everything from maintenance to finance to purchasing to DBE and Title VI, and determine whether or not the agency is complying with the federal requirements associated with the program over the previous 3 years. As a former federal official, both as a career employee and as a political appointee, I have participated in and have been a part of hundreds of these reviews for both big agencies and small. One of the things that I've learned over my career is that it is very, very rare for an agency to get a perfect review, in that there are no deficiencies found in the operations of the organization itself. Well, I'm very pleased to inform the board that as part of the review that was just completed a week ago, CTA received a perfect review. We had absolutely no deficiencies, and in fact, we were touted in a number of areas, including our diversity program, as being what they viewed as industry best practices. And so, as a former FTA official who was responsible for enforcing these requirements, you can imagine how proud I am of our staff for the work that they've done, not only since I've been here, but even during the previous tenure with Mr. Claypool. But that for an agency our size to not have any findings is pretty much unheard of. And it is certainly the first time in the history of CTA that we've achieved that type of accomplishment. So I wanted to, one, acknowledge the work of the staff in terms of doing that review, and I particularly want to take a moment to acknowledge two people who were responsible really for coordinating the entire effort with FTA, producing all the documents, getting all the senior staff together to meet with the FTA personnel and walk them through this. And that's Jeff Hulbert and Nora Learson. And Jeff and Nora, if you'll stand up. It is quite an accomplishment for CTA to get acknowledged for our work here, and I think that it certainly reflects not only what the auditors found in their annual audit, but I think it reflects the professionalism, the dedication that CTA staff place in terms of carrying out the programs and providing the services to the city and the community that we serve. So I just wanted to make you aware of that, and thank you for your support of the staff in carrying out those responsibilities.
Congratulations to everyone.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
And to Mr. President.
Our next order of business is the review of an ordinance authorizing the treasurer to execute an electricity contract. Jeremy.
Morning, Jeremy Fine. The ordinance, Chairman, do you want me to handle both at the same time, or you want me just to handle the electricity?
Let's go one by one.
Okay. So the first one up is a request for pre-authorization to execute a contract with a new service provider for electricity. The pre-authorization will best ensure that we get our best pricing due to industry convention, as well as a need for speed and execution to lock in at what are really kind of all-time lows. We will, after we receive the best and final offer, we will notify the chairman of the price and the terms on the day of the receipt of that best and final offer. And then we will follow up with an update to the board with regard to those particulars at the meeting following the execution of the contract.
Any questions? How many companies are bidding?
So because of the fact that we're such a large electricity consumer, there's only a fairly limited pool in the past and to date, and the number of folks that have pulled down the RFP are 4. So, you know, again, just because of the size of what we're consuming, there's only a few providers in that space.
Any questions? If there are no further questions, may I have leave to place this item in the omnibus for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Our next order of business is the review of an ordinance authorizing the treasurer to execute a diesel fuel contract.
So similar to the electricity contract, again, we're looking for pre-authorization to execute a contract with the new service provider. The pre-authorization will allow us, again, to lock in the best pricing and also being able to lock in speedily so that we can lock in at kind of all-time lows here. Again, as with the electricity contract, we'll notify the chairman as to the price and the terms and when we receive that best and final offer. And as well, we'll update the board as to those contract specifics at the following meeting after execution. With regard to the number of participants in this pool, typically what we've seen are 2 participants in the pool. Again, we are a very large consumer of diesel fuel, about 17 million gallons a year. So again, there's a fairly limited number of providers that we can be assured that would be able to deliver that much fuel over the course of the year.
And how much are we buying, okay, for the year to come?
Over the course of the
percentage.
on the outset of the contract, we typically don't buy the full allotment for the year. We typically target around, say, 40% at the actual initial indication of the signature of the contract, and then we'll buy a little bit throughout the year. The reason why you don't want to buy it all in one day is that that's taking a lot of pricing risk on one particular day and one particular, basically, hour in that day. So we average those costs over the course of the year, and we try to buy when those rates dip down.
So we fix 40% of the
Yes.
amount that we're going to be using.
Yes, that's typically what we've done.
Thank you. Any other questions? If there are no further questions, may I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you.
Our next order of business is the review of an ordinance authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Chicago through its Department of Police for federal fiscal year 2015 Transit Security Grant Funds. Pat Daly. Good morning, Pat.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
This request is to pass through CTA transit security grant funding received from Department of Homeland Security for fiscal year 2015. CPD, being CTA's primary security provider, is eligible to request grant funding under this program, and CTA passes that request to Homeland Security, and then CTA passes those funds received to the Chicago Police Department.
And we've been doing that, okay, for years, right?
Yes, this is a continuation of a process, and we've actually applied again this year.
Any questions?
Just to paraphrase what I heard is that this is sort of a prearranged thing, like we just pass their proposal on to the feds, and then the feds fund it, and we just give the money to the city.
And we agree with the proposal because
Yeah,
it impacts the
obviously.
security of the CTA.
Obviously. Thank you.
Any other questions? If there are no further questions, may I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for approval?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Second.
Our next order of business is the review of 3 ordinances authorizing renewal of agreements with the City of Chicago, the City of Evanston, and the Village of Oak Park for police security. But
Yes, these are 3 intergovernmental agreements that are already in place, and we're asking for the renewal of these agreements for voluntary special employment programs at the 3 police departments. The voluntary special employment program is one in which these police departments offer employment to off-duty police officers on their days off to patrol the CTA bus, rail, and facilities. These are long-standing programs, and we're asking that these intergovernmental agreements be renewed.
any questions?
Just curious, is there any particular type of training that is given to those police officers?
They
so that
receive
can
rail
work?
safety training,
Okay.
and then they're, as they work on the system, they get to know the system. Most of them are repeat people. They've worked several days a month on our system. So it's not new to them. Plus, they're district officers, and district officers have responsibilities to also patrol CTA, bus, rail, and facilities.
Thank you.
Are
Any
those
other
the only
questions?
two?
Go
Are
ahead,
those the
please.
only two groups that you've been working with?
Well, actually, there's three: Evanston, Oak Park, and Chicago.
Well, yeah, okay.
Any other questions? If there are no further questions, may I have leave to place these 3 items on the omnibus for board approval?
So
So
moved.
moved.
I'll s-
Thank you. But our next order of business is the review of an ordinance authorizing the purchase of primary and excess property insurance coverage for policy year 2016-2017. Steve, good morning.
Good morning, Chairman. Steve Wood, Deputy General Counsel in the CTA's Law Department. This ordinance involves the authorization of the 2016-2017 property insurance policy. The policy runs from July to July, and it's renewed every year. As in prior years, our insurance broker at Mesereau and our DBE Paradigm marketed the renewal to both the domestic and international insurance markets, and the insurance syndicate led by Lloyd's of London provided the best combination of coverage and price. The proposed premium for next year's policy, along with taxes and fees, is approximately $2,931,000, which is an increase of about $477,000, or a little over 19% from this year's rate. The increase is based on an increase of about $330 million in the CTA asset values. That's primarily due to the purchase of new buses, the increase in the valuation of our existing buses, and an increase in value in certain rail stations due to renovations on the red and blue lines, as well as some electrical substations which were brought online this year. CTA has had some claim activity this year, but we've also seen a hardening in the rail insurance market generally, and less competition in that market, which is also a factor leading to the increase in generally in premium rates. I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions?
Is the increase the same following the framework that we did last year? Has there been any changes to our insurance program from last year?
There haven't been any changes in any of the deductible limits or anything like that, but you did see a similar decrease actually last year. We took about $550 million off of our asset values last year and saw a reduction of about $400,000 in premium. We're now increasing the asset value. We're seeing an increase in the premium. The decrease last year was due to a rebooking or revaluation of the value of our rail cars that we had booked at a budget level, but we realized we could actually book at a replacement value, so that brought a significant amount of money off of the asset values. The underwriting really does seem to be tied very closely to the ups and downs of the asset values of the agency.
Have we looked at any changes going forward? Did Mesereau come back with any options that we can look at?
We did look at some options and discuss those with finance and the CFO. There were various types of movement in deductibles and things like that. The problem with moving up in deductibles is that they never then move down. Once we go and have an increase in the deductible, as you know, it's hard to get the deductibles back to a level that's more favorable to the authority.
And you said insurance in the rail area has been more limited. How
Yes.
limited is that?
It's a fairly specialized market anyway. It takes a carrier with some significant capacity in insurability to be in the market. As an example, one of the members in our consortium last year, in our syndicate last year, was Zurich, a fairly large international insurance company. They've exited the rail market entirely in the last 6 months. So they were not participating in this procurement process at all this year.
So how many are participating right now?
Mesereau marketed to approximately, I want to say 35 to 40 insurance companies internationally. We got sort of, there are different levels of indication, right? We're interested, we're not only interested, we're going to offer. And I think we had in the order of 8 to 10 responding back with some degree of interest/offer, and then the final grouping is about 4 insurance companies led by Lloyd's in London.
Any other questions?
I have a picky question. I missed the part that about replacement value versus Purchase price?
So going through a claims process, which we had not ever gone through, we were required to determine what the replacement value of a rail car was in respect to a claim that we had. We had booked the value on our asset log at around $1.95 million per car. As it turned out, going through the process of actually having to get down into the numbers and figuring out what the replacement cost was, it turned out that replacing those was not the budget amount, it was actually a lower amount of about $1.565 million. So if we have 1,400 cars booked on our asset log at 1.95 and we reduce it to 1.565, it took almost $500 million in value right off of our asset log.
Thank you. Not such a picky question then.
Yeah. It had a significant effect. Last year, it had a significant effect on the premium.
Okay. Any other questions? If there are no further questions, may I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for approval?
So moved. I'll second.
Thank you, Steve. Our next order of business is the review of an ordinance authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with Community College District Number 508 for basic mechanical skills training for the authority's Second Chance program. Tom McCone.
Good morning. Tom McCone, Chief Administrative Officer. I'm joined by with Geisha Esther, our Director of our Learning and Support Unit. Geisha is going to describe what will be our second IGA with City Colleges to provide workforce training for our Second Chance program.
Good morning, Chairman Peterson, Board of Directors, President Carter. As Tom said, my name is Geisha Esther, and I'm the Director of Professional Development for the Chicago Transit Authority Learning and Support Unit, and I'm presenting for your consideration an intergovernmental agreement between the Chicago Transit Authority and City Colleges of Chicago to provide basic mechanical skills training to up to 110 Second Chance program participants at Daly College. The Second Chance program provides valuable job skills and career opportunities to individuals who face challenges re-entering the workforce. The program provides full-time employment for up to 12 months for participants who are employed to clean CTA's bus and rail vehicles. This training is an addition to our existing Second Chance program job skills training initiative and includes customer service training, also facilitated by City Colleges. This program will increase our Second Chance program participants' employability through enhanced job skills training, thus aligning with their ultimate goal of increased self-sufficiency through permanent employment. I can address any questions you have at this time.
Any questions?
I don't have a question. One, just to, again, commend the president and the staff for continuing to put in place services to help the young men and women who are in the Second Chance program to kind of move forward. What I'd like to have or see, I would say, in the next couple of years, probably 2018, it's just, an ROI. We're investing a lot. They're employed for a year here. We're now, customer service is really important for our customers. And now we're now allowing them to get training in another space that's important to us in terms of mechanical skill training. So it would be, I think, interesting for the board to see a couple of years down the road with both of these programs being in place. What's the ROI in terms of the agency? How many of those young men and women have been able to find full-time employment here at the agency? How many of them have gone on to find employment elsewhere? Just tracking them, I think, for a couple of years, because this is a huge investment. You're now working 12 months out of the year. You can go to City College for free, customer service training, mechanical skill training. So it would just be great to, again, I think, take a look at the return on the investment a couple of years into this.
Absolutely. We'll do that. We've already seen great returns with the existing program, and enhancing it, we'd expect to see the same.
How many students enter, the program?
The entire program or the basic mechanicals?
No, the basic mechanical.
Up to 110 participants will go through the
110.
program. Mm-hmm.
And of those 110, how many we end up hiring? In CTA, okay.
Yeah, so it'll be based on whatever open positions and their suitability for those positions. So our goal is self-sufficiency through permanent employment. That's our end goal. whether here at CTA or in another arena.
So the training is just launched and it runs through 2018, and what we can do is we can provide updates in terms of as the cohorts finish, how many and what types of jobs do they get placed
Yeah, it
into.
would be good, okay,
Because
to
this is
know.
just, we haven't even completed the first cohort.
Okay.
And this ordinance puts in place sort of the last piece that we need to complete the training program for them.
I wonder if in line with that, we would also look at if there are opportunities with CTA. I would think with the training, it would set them up for opportunities in other places, right? So we're looking
Absolutely.
at that as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
That's our goal, is for them to be able to break into the transportation industry with those skills. And obviously, if not here at CTA, then where? Right? Those are transferable skills that they'll be able to utilize.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If there are no further questions, may I have leave to place this item in the omnibus for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Our final order of business today is the review of 12 purchase awards and sales award recommendations. Presenter Ellen McCormick.
Good morning.
Morning, Ellen.
Good morning.
Morning.
We will start with contracts number A1 through A5. Any questions, please? Can you give us a little bit more color, okay, in A5, please?
On A5, sure. So A5 is a contract, it was an invitation for bid, and it's a contract to clean the sewers for our facilities, so the various bus and rail stations. We went out to bid, and as you'll see, we only got one response. So we reached out to, first of all, to Windmill Environmental Services to find out what they didn't, why they didn't bid, and they have just recently gone out of business. We did reach out to several other companies, and two of them responded that they had responded to invitation for bid for the CTA before, and they just found they weren't priced competitively, so they didn't want to invest the time and effort to bid again with the feeling that they wouldn't win. We did have another company that we reached out to, and they said they didn't have the manpower or the equipment to service such a large area as that the CTA needs. So we didn't feel it would be worthwhile to go out for bid again. We did, they were in line with our independent cost estimate, so we decided that there really wouldn't be any benefit to going back out for bid.
I noticed that there was no DBE participation on this contract. What drove to that? Was there any vendors that could actually do that type of work, or?
So although we have a number of vendors that are plumbers, we don't have DBEs that had the equipment to perform for the contract. So we had the similar issue that purchasing had with finding a prime contractor, with finding subcontracting opportunities for it.
Let me, one of the things that I noticed, and I wanted to bring this to the president's attention, if you go through the entire book in terms of the contracts that we're going to award, I don't know what the standard is in terms of those that are responding, but we're getting under 5%. Anytime I'm looking here that you send out 44 solicitations, you only got back one. I mean, you can go throughout. I was going to raise this question with all of them. And I'm wondering, is there a standard? Is it 5%? Clearly, it's less than 10% when you start to look at the solicitations that we're sending out. I think we probably need to start to do a little deeper dive as to why we're sending out 40, 50, 60 solicitations and you're getting back only 5. I think the roofing contract opportunity is an opportunity to grow something here locally. I mean, nothing against Gary, but roofing is not a complicated, I'm just looking at it. I mean, when I look and see that we're going to award back-to-back contract for something that cleaning sewers and catch basins, that we actually had to go out of the state or the city. And then when I take a look at, again, whether it's A4, we had 44 solicitations, only one bidder. If you go to A5, you had 50 solicitations, I only got, again, one bidder. I just started going through, and we probably want to start talking and finding out what's stopping folks when we send out these solicitations from bidding on our work. If it's a price issue, then at least, I'm just curious, at some point, I think we need to do a deep dive into what's happening, that we're sending out all of these solicitations and we're getting less than 5% response to do business with us. We pay on time, we're a good agency, these are multi-year contracts for the most part, so you can actually have a business, grow a business and do business, but no one's responding. So I'm a little bit curious when I go through and, I just happen to notice at this time, because I'm like, sewers and catch basin cleaning, it's not a complicated task, and not to have, companies locally that responded to the solicitation, I was just a little bit.
So from a DBE standpoint, we did do that. When we found that, because we thought sewers and catch basins should be something easy for any plumbing company to do. So we contacted our DBE plumbers and to find out why they weren't interested in the solicitation. And they stated that they didn't have, it's a special, some special equipment that you have to use. I believe it's a truck and some other equipment that you have to use, and they didn't have that equipment. And the one DBE that we found to have the equipment didn't have the capacity. He said he had other contracts that he was working on currently, and he didn't have the capacity to also work on our contract. But he said he would look for the next time the contract to come out, that maybe he would be available to do it. So we only had one DBE actually that had the equipment to do it.
And so, Mary, what I'm curious about, the city does the same thing through their sewer department. I would be curious with MBEs.
Okay.
Even if then, I'm just, again, we can talk afterwards about it, but again, when I see something like this, I'm just curious as to our outreach effort and sort of looking at this as an opportunity, I think, to explore and look for opportunities of local companies to maybe find a space to do business with us. And again, like I said, it's just, not just with this, I just think going through, if you're sending out 50, 40 solicitations and you're only getting back 2 and 3 responses, either we take them off the list, because if we're continuing to send, maybe they don't want to do business. I mean, if you send them out solicitations year after year after year and they're not responding, then maybe we need to do, we need to clean up our list of who we're sending these solicitations out to, because clearly they don't want to do business with us.
I think if I may comment in line with what the chairman is saying, I know you do a lot of outreach with vendor groups, and I'm saying both to procurement and the DB department. I think it would be great if we're looking at some of these and looking at them long-term, going to them and say, plan that in a year or 2 years, this is going to be coming up. These are big contracts that I think would be great opportunities for vendors that they could start preparing now, and maybe take a look at where we're getting such a low return on responses. Because I know as a business owner, if I'm in that area, I would look at it and say, maybe I can start preparing. It's kind of what the Department of Aviation does, for example, with the concession areas. They start putting out that these concession areas are going to be coming up, and people start preparing literally 2 years to 3 years in advance, because the preparation does take time, and sometimes you need special equipment and everything. I know you're so proactive with a lot of these business groups, so I think that might be a different way of looking at it as well, because I think you're right, Chairman. Yeah.
And even with the equipment, what I'm discovering, you don't even have to buy it now. You just lease it. So, you've even taken out the cost factor of, okay, well, if I go out and buy it, I got to maintain it. You don't even have to buy it now. You can just do a long-term lease. And so, again, I just think it's an opportunity for us to reach out and,
Chairman and Director, I wanted to let you know, we do what you had recommended. We do a buying plan, and we do it 18 months out. We list it with the city and all the sister agencies, so the vendors can now go to one location to look to see all the opportunities that are coming up, and we do it for just that. It or whatever. So we have been doing that for the last few years, and just recently we started and kind of work they do. And what I say is I would rather have them be over-inclusive than under. I'd rather have them say, oh, I don't actually do that type of work, I'm not going to bid on it, than say, shoot, I could have done that work had I only listed. So what we do is we send out an email blast then to any vendor who's registered for doing that type of work. We send out an email blast so that we make sure we're more inclusive. Maybe a firm can't bid this year, but maybe they're able to next year. Maybe they'll grow in size and capacity. So that is possibly one of the reasons for the disparity between how many we set out and what we get back. Additionally, when we do get one bid, we do reach out to the other vendors, and we try to find out why didn't you do it? Why didn't you bid? And we try to find solutions if possible. So that is something we're working towards, but we can look and see if there's something on a national average. We can check with other transit agencies and find out if they're getting better rates of return and what they're doing. We'll be happy to do that.
Yeah, I think you got to scrub the solicitation list that you're sending it to, because the rate of response is just really low, so.
If you get into B1, okay, and I know it's exactly the same supplier, okay, I mean, the same amount, the same type of work, and 50 solicitations went out, okay, and only one.
Yeah, you had 2 on there.
Yes, they do have 2 on there. So, as you had said, we do have another contract. This one is also for cleaning sewers, but it's for cleaning sewers related to the subway. And as I had heard Chris describe it, it's much more technical work. It's work, it has to be done around the tracks. It has to be done on various times that it doesn't impact our train schedule as much. And it seems like it's a little bit more technical. So we had 2 different contracts on this. One thinking maybe we could get more bidders on the first because it wasn't as complicated, we didn't think. And if someone was able to bid on the first, on the facilities one, but not on the subway system one, we didn't want them to be excluded. As it turns out, we only had 1 bidder on the first and 2 bidders on the second. But we do try to take all that into consideration because we really do try to increase our pool.
When you talk to various potential bidders, does anyone say that I would bid if it was a smaller contract?
That is something we're looking into. I mean, sometimes what we'll get is it's the capacity. We did have that on for the facilities. One of the vendors said it's just too large. The issue about breaking that up, it's not from a procurement standpoint as much, but with the using departments, as I understand it, they're now trying to monitor 2 different firms. You know, sometimes there's a difference of work and, you know, which one does what and so on. So it's more of a, I think, more efficient from an operating standpoint to be dealing with 1 firm. But we'll continue to talk to them about that. I know they are looking into it in construction areas, dividing up the work, making it smaller, so we can do some SBE contracts and potentially get more DBE bidders that could maybe work on the smaller ones rather than the larger ones. So that is something we're taking into consideration and working with diversity and the using departments on.
Are we capturing any of this data that we're receiving of why we have low solicitation bid, and are we compiling an action plan around that data?
We haven't yet, but that is something we can look into.
So in diversity, we actually, when we set a goal, we actually have a module in which we put in why we set the goal, the reason we set it, what the results were, so that way for next time the bid comes along, we can look back at the historical data to see what went on, what we need to do, and for planning purposes when we do our outreach events to talk about it also.
Any other questions for the A's? Let's move to the B1 to B4. Any questions?
I don't have a question. I just want to say I'm happy to be able to vote on the Quincy Loop station and making it accessible. So appreciate seeing that contract on here and looking forward to adding another accessible station in the loop.
Any other questions, okay, for the B1 to B4? So let's move to contract number F1. Are there very many companies, okay, buying scrap?
Well, we've done business with these 4 before. The company we were doing business with in the past, they went out of business. The price of the metal fluctuates so greatly that it's hard for we often find it's hard for someone to hold their price for a certain period of time. I can look and see if there are more bidders in here. We are happy with the pool, though, that we have of 4. Again, we've done business with them before. And what we intend to do on this contract, the reason we awarded it to 4, is we're going to do, every time we get a certain amount of scrap metal that we're ready to sell, we're going to compete it each time. So we know we'll get the best price. If we asked them to hold it for a long time, we're afraid they'd lowball us for those times when the price was low. We feel that competing it each time will give us the best price. And again, these are 4 companies we have done business with, and we know that they're good vendors for us.
Any other questions? Let's move to H1.
Chairman, you
No,
jumped to
G1,
H1. You
sorry.
should probably go back to F1 and then G1, and I think we're finished.
Yeah, G1, sorry.
So you're going to do G1 right now.
We're going to do G1. Any questions? That's a single source, right?
Sole source?
Oracle, yeah. So now, any questions?
For F1.
Yeah, for F1. I mean, for F1 and G1, we already did both.
Okay.
So let's do the H1 right now. Am I correct?
If there's any other questions on H1, yeah.
Any questions? No more questions. If there are no further business, if there are no further questions, may I have leave to place these 12 contracts on the omnibus for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Since there is no further business to come before this committee, may I have a motion to recommend board approval of the omnibus?
So moved.
May I have a second? Will
Been
the
seconded.
secretary call the roll, please?
Yes. Mr. Miller? Yes?
Yes.
Mr. Irvine?
Yes.
Dr. Sen?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Youngblood?
Yes.
Ms. Alvarez Rosales?
Yes.
Chairman Silva?
Yes.
That motion is approved with 7 yes votes.
And may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
We are adjourned.
We're adjourned. Just give us a minute, Terry. You ready, Steve? Okay. We're ready, Terry.
All right. Good morning.
Good morning.
I'd like to call to order the regular scheduled meeting of Chicago Transit Board for June 8, 2016. Would the secretary call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Miller.
Here.
Ms. Irvine.
Here.
Dr. Sen.
Yes.
Ms. Alvarez-Rosales.
Yes.
Mr. Silva.
Yes.
Mr. Youngblood.
Here.
Chairman Peterson.
Here.
We have a quorum of the board with all 7 members present.
Thanks, Greg. The next order of business today is public comment. Greg?
Yes, we have Keith Keisel contacted me yesterday morning, and we're pleased to have you here, Keith, so please address the board. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning, Keith.
Just a couple of issues. First, I'd like to thank the board for all these years of me coming down here, addressing the meeting, and some of the things, suggestions I've suggested, I've actually seen them carry out, such as the bus shelters that I proposed, not the trackers on the buses that I proposed in 2008, and how much money was being wasted on direct deposit slips that they finally stopped sending out the direct deposit slips that people weren't picking up. So I'd like to thank the board for those recommendations I've given that they have actually done. This is perhaps my last time, 90% chance it's my last time addressing this board as an employee of the CTA.
You about to retire?
I will know in the next 2 hours.
All right.
My next stop is the pension board.
All right.
But I'll be coming back as a passenger, so you have not seen the end of me.
All right.
But a couple of issues I want to address, especially with the new president. Something I addressed before under the old president, Mr. Carter, is that the state of Illinois has, and don't worry, this won't happen with my case, but there's a legal marijuana in the state of Illinois in which people have the ability to legally be prescribed marijuana. And my gut feeling, there's going to be a time that somebody's going to have a lawsuit because they are an employee under safety position, might get prescribed legal marijuana for some kind of condition. And of course, that contradicts the CTA rules as far as that in the system under the old, before it became legalized in Illinois. And I'm suggesting that perhaps that the CTA could come up with a policy, just in case that should happen, and perhaps, of course, a cooling off period after your last prescription, of course, maybe 30 days or so. Perhaps they might want to come up with a policy before somebody decides they want to demand their right to this drug that is legal in the state of Illinois. So something they might want to look into a policy concerning safety-sensitive employees that might get prescribed legal marijuana, and because I see a lawsuit coming I see the day coming that somebody's going to try to demand their right to all drugs that's available to them. So this is something you might want to look into on the head on before it actually gets to that point. Also want to point out a couple of things I noticed. There's no longer any posting of bus fares on the CTA buses. So there's a lot of times that the customers do not know what the bus fare is. And so I think, and they used to have, before they had the fare boxes, they used to have them on the fare boxes, and then used to have them above the operator. But right now, there is no legal posting of what the fare is on CTA buses. So something they might want to look into as far as finding a way to post what the fares are on the CTA buses. Another thing I want to bring up is we have a security, when we hit the silent alarm, the audio can pick up where control can hear what's going on in your bus. However, that may become a legal issue because there's nothing legally warning. There's warning that you may be under video surveillance, but there's no warning on the buses. That's a possibility that you might be under audio in case the operator does hit the silent alarm. So if that comes down to any kind of prosecution or any kind of charges dealing with what was heard on the audio without any warning, there's no audio, there might become a problem in case there's a court case. Comes down that they would not warn, there's a possibility that they could be listening to as well as the video. So something they might want to look at is putting warning on the buses that perhaps you could be under audio surveillance as well as video. And the last thing, I misunderstood something that was done at the board meeting, I think last year, but there is a need, they do this in Amsterdam because I've been there, they're having, in Midway Airport, having vending machines for the venture cards and of course, perhaps an agent inside of Midway Airport instead of at the terminal. That way, you can reduce the line of customers that don't know how to work the vending machine. It might be in the way of regular customers on the way to work. Perhaps they can get the venture cards while they're in the airport in the baggage claim. They do have that in Amsterdam, right outside the train area. You can buy your train cards if you want to go into the city, in the baggage claim, in the airport area, as well as in the outside area. So that reduces the long lines of people at the venture machines who may not know how to operate it, and in the way of people rushing to work and needs to fill their cars. And that's it until the next time when I might be a passenger.
All right, Keith.
Thank
Well,
you.
congratulations at the pension board. Hopefully, you're eligible and you worked hard. And it's
I'm
always
eligible. 26 years, but I'm only 51 years old, but I am
You're
eligible.
All right. Well, you're too young to start working.
Oh, I didn't
But-
say I was going to start working, period.
All right, good. Well, thanks for the comments. I mean, they're all good comments, and I know our general counsel picked up a couple of them, but thank you for the advice and your continued advocacy, not only as a worker, but as you said, it could be just as a rider going forward or a citizen. So continue to
Right.
look forward to continue to see you.
My income will be cut, so we'll be riding the buses.
All right. All right.
Okay,
Thanks.
have a great day.
All
Thanks.
right, you too.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Keith. And Chairman Pearson, that concludes our public comment portion of today's board meeting.
Thanks, Greg. The next order of business today is the approval of the May 11, 2016 board minutes that were previously distributed. I will now entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the regular board meeting of May 11, 2016.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Mr. Miller?
One of us will.
Abstain. Mr. Irvine?
Yes.
Dr. Sen?
Yes.
Ms. Alva Rosales?
Yes.
Mr. Silva?
Yes.
Mr. Youngblood?
Yes.
Chairman Peterson?
Yes.
That motion is approved with 6 yes votes and 1 abstention.
Thanks, Greg. The next order of business is executive session. It is my understanding, Karen, that there will be no executive session today. All right, thank you. The next order of business is a report from the Committee on Strategic Planning and Service Delivery, Director Sen.
The Committee on Strategic Planning and Service Delivery met earlier this morning. The committee approved the minutes of the May 11th, 2016 meeting. The committee also reviewed the following items: an ordinance authorizing improvements to Southside bus routes, number 26, South Shore Express, and number 95E, 93rd, 95th, and the number 95W, that's the West 95th Street bus. An ordinance authorizing 3-year extension to the agreement with the Commuter Rail Division of the Regional Transportation Authority, that's METRA, to subsidize bus route number 128, Soldier Field Express. The committee reviewed all of these items and recommend all of them for board approval and place them on the omnibus. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Director Sen. The next order of business is a report from the Committee on Finance, Audit, and Budget, Director Silva.
The Committee of Finance, Audit, and Budget met earlier this morning. The committee approved the minutes of May 11, 2016. The committee heard a presentation of the Independent Auditor Report for fiscal year 2015. The committee reviewed the finance report. The committee also reviewed the following items: an ordinance authorizing the treasurer to execute an electricity contract, an ordinance authorizing the treasurer to execute a diesel fuel contract, an ordinance authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Chicago through its Department of Police for federal fiscal year 2015 transit security grant funds, an ordinance authorizing renewal of an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Chicago through its Department of Police for police security, an ordinance authorizing renewal of an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Evanston through its Department of Police for police security, an ordinance authorizing renewal of an intergovernmental agreement with the Village of Oak Park for police security, an ordinance authorizing the purchase of primary and excess property insurance coverage for policy year 2016-17, an ordinance authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with Community College District Number 508 for basic mechanical skills training for the authority's Second Chance program, and 12 purchase and sales award recommendations. The committee reviewed all of these items, recommend all of them for board approval, and place them all on the omnibus. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Director Silva. May I now have a motion to approve the omnibus as stated by Director Sin and Silva?
So moved.
Second?
And seconded. Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Irvine?
Yes.
Dr. Sen?
Yes.
Ms. Alvarez-Rosales?
Yes.
Mr. Silva?
Yes.
Mr. Youngblood?
Yes.
Chairman Peterson?
Yes.
That motion is approved with 7 yes votes.
Thanks, Greg. The next order of business is a construction report. Chris Bushell.
Chris Buchel, your Chief Infrastructure Officer.
Mayor Person, Director of Diversity Programs.
So today I'll be reporting on 4 projects. We'll start with the 95th Street Terminal Improvement Program. So I'm pleased to say that we've issued substantial completion on the advanced package 2 in the middle of May, and the contractor is currently doing punch list on that. I'll call your attention to the DBE section and the great work of our DBE department in exceeding the goal based on the current attainment of almost 36% versus a goal of 30%. Pausing there to see if there are any questions. Finding none, and moving on. We are starting the work, so we are both working with Mary and her team on bidding various components of the design-build contract. So as you know, we've awarded it. The design-build contractor is now awarding various packages associated with that. We've awarded some of the foundation packages and are now bidding the track workout. This is a substantial package, including the reconstruction of an important interlocking just to the south of the terminal, which will both improve reliability for that yard as well as reliability for subsequently reliability for our passengers in terms of allowing different types of movement out of that yard. We anticipate that after the July 4th holiday, we will start the work on the inner foundations for the south terminal. So that the design-build contract continues to move forward in a positive direction, on budget and on schedule. So we see the substantially complete exterior foundation walls for the new south terminal. Again, as we start after the holidays, we'll see the construction of the piers that will go on the inside. Ultimately, that will support the deck on top, and the new bus canopies, and the new south terminal. But you can kind of envision this view will, to some degree, disappear, right? Because it will end up being the deck on the same level with the 95th Street Bridge, which also gets expanded to improve traffic for the community as well as service to the buses. So as we start to see the construction of the foundations, it will subsequently start to go up, and you'll see the terminal in this place instead of cars.
Chris, before you move from 95th Street, I didn't want to let the comment about the DBE go by. The reason you heard silence from the board is that we expect that to be the norm, not the exception. So we're excited about the number that is above the floor, but again, we expect that to be the norm, not the exception. That's why you didn't hear a lot of feedback. We've come to expect that from you and Mary now, so.
Understood, Chair. So moving on to the Wilson Transfer Station, we're in phase 2 and continue to pursue work on track 2. So as you know, we're moving west to east on this project. I want to again kind of call out Robert Smith and our operations team. They're doing a great job on managing the 3-track operation through this area. Our contractor continues to progress on track 2. You can see these pictures are reminiscent of what we saw on track 2. continue to see the progress, same sort of progress that we saw on track one. You see the same basic construction, first with the steel, subsequently the form work, and then the construction of the deck and the track work on top of that. So that work is progressing. You can see likewise that work continues on the piers. These are, in many cases, shoring piers that we will be running temporary service on as we put various components of the project in place. In addition, the station house continues to progress. Many of you that are using the station, this is not a view you would see. It's sort of on the other side of the stairs in the newer station house as you walk up, but this is the work that is progressing on the escalator. It's kind of a rare glimpse into escalators. They're interesting pieces of equipment. Many of us use them, but one of the main components here is a truss, a structural truss that bridges between the two floors. You can see the elements of that truss in the photograph kind of on the right side of the escalator there. One of the things the contractor did that we were particularly supportive of is right before the end of phase one, they dropped this entire truss in there and then literally kind of built the building around it, if you will. So that enabled them to advance the construction, I think, in a very positive way. And you can kind of gives you a glimpse again at the structure of this important piece of equipment that we put in our stations.
Chris, I don't know if you had a chance. I know I was fortunate enough to go up to visit Wilson Station before the work started. But for the board members who didn't have a chance to see, I mean, the before and after, you know, it's one thing to build a new station like the 22nd and Cermak station or the one that's further in, a little bit further east, but to have had an opportunity to see this station prior to this work, and I don't know if you have any before and after pictures, kind of going forward with future presentations, but it is just amazing to see the transformation of this station from a couple of years ago almost when we first went out to announce this project. It's really transformative, so.
Yeah, the project footprint is substantial. You know, as you look at the reconstruction of an elevated station, it certainly has its challenges. You know, an ordinary one, a smaller one, say Cermak or others that we've built in recent years. But this station has a huge footprint. It really extends, you know, all the way from you know, Montrose to the south, almost all the way north up to Lawrence, just short of Lawrence or the Leland. So it's a big station with a big footprint. And any of the board members would like to go up there, I'm happy to take them up there. And I can also incorporate some before and after pictures in the presentation.
Yeah, and I know
How before do you want to go?
No, I was just thinking, I know we've got Truman College there, but what communities surround us? Is this considered to a growing area in the city in terms of, what communities are there near Truman?
Well, I would say the most distinct one in this area is Uptown.
Uptown, okay.
And, you know, what I've at least observed casually, there's probably other folks that have studied it more carefully, say in our planning department, but you know, that we have seen there has been significant development to the south and to the north of the station. And what Wilson really does is sort of ties that together. So it ties it together. It is a positive asset not only for obvious stuff like city colleges or Truman, but it's a positive aspect for many of the businesses in and around that area as well, and many of the homeowners as well. So in many cases, it's kind of one of the missing pieces to development in Uptown, and I'm certain that, as we've seen in other places, we'll see substantial development outside of that project, both with the assistance and coordination of the city and without. So.
Yeah, I see this as an investment where you're sort of getting ahead of both residential as well as business growth in the area. I mean, to me, this is just, you know, kind of from a transportation standpoint, investing in the future with what you can almost envision 10 to 20 years down the road. We would have made this $250 million investment, but the residential and the business community or economic development will just take off in this area.
And it also, I mean, it dovetails with that future vision too, because it will, as you know, become a transfer station. Yeah. So offering additional service and service choices to customers in that area. It has stations on both sides of Wilson, a main and an auxiliary. which will reduce the amount of people crossing the street right in front of the station. I think, and ultimately improve not only throughput in the traffic, but improve our bus service. And of course, importantly to the board and its considerations, it's accessible, or will be accessible. So it touches a lot of different lives and is very, it's an expensive project for sure, but one that I think will have impact, really into the next century. So we're expensive, but we've had to impact the community for a long time. And I'll also say it's in the footprint of RPM too, so there's some modernization elements here that will really be valuable as we push forward with that important effort too. Creating a concrete deck will, instead of the open deck, those of you that came and went today from the CTA headquarters probably heard the green line go by at high decibel levels. As we improve and put a modern infrastructure in and around the station, that concrete deck also absorbs a significant amount of noise and makes those increased service levels more palatable to the community. So moving on with the Your New Blue project, 5-station project, Addison, Irving Park, Montrose, Harlem, and Cumberland. This project continues on time and on budget. We recently, last night, completed work at the on the concrete platform, the platform concrete rather at Montrose, and reopened the full station there. So you'll see some good pictures in your next presentation. We continue this week to work on the stairs, and then subsequently on the elevator at Addison, and then we will move on to the Irving Park station as the next one in this series. So you can kind of get a flavor for the work that we're doing. You'll notice that the platform isn't cantilevered out here, so we're in the process of removing that and then recasting that edge condition there. So repairing the concrete of the platform. You can see the end result of it on the finished side of Montrose. Now you'll see that temporary barrier going down and the entire platform being opened up while we continue to finish the painting and the lighting and some of the other customer improvements to the platform area. Montrose. Laramie and Harlem, we have not formally issued substantial completion on this project, although we're significantly ahead of schedule on it. We have completed all of the line cuts. We're in punch list at this point. So I'm pleased to say that we put a nice piece of track in place for our West Side customers, and we look forward to completing the project at the end of the year. But really, we're just going through punch list at this point. The major work has been done ahead of schedule, and most importantly, probably to Mr. Smith and to our riding public, that is to our operations team and our riding public, we've completed the line cuts before the busy summer festival and festival season. So I'm glad for that to have happened. See a picture of the work in progress. This was some of the most difficult part of the project here. We have an interlocking just to one side. I've had to explain in some of our morning flash reports some of the challenges we've had at that interlocking as we tear up the entire station. I think we've worked very hard with the contractor as well as our maintenance folks to address those issues, but they have been a challenge. You can see this is a very constrained area working in the station, removing the ties and then reinstalling it. Here you can see the new ties in. I think the contractor and the construction team, led by Mr. Whitman behind me here, did a great job with the project. And that concludes my report.
All right, thanks, Chris. Any questions for Chris? All right, thank you. Greg, is there any new business to come before the board?
No, sir.
Since there is no new business to come before the board, I now entertain a motion to adjourn. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
We adjourn. Thank you.